May the words of my lips and the meditation of our hearts be acceptable to you, O Lord, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. You may be seated. I know that some of y'all know that I had the wonderful opportunity earlier this month to walk an 1,100-year-old pilgrimage route with several people from St. Stephen's and where Christians have walked to learn more about their faith or to find God or for any number of reasons that someone may find themselves on a pilgrimage. And I also hope that there are many more opportunities if you find yourself inspired for us to help create community in the future in this way. Pilgrims often walk with a shell on their back to denote their journey, and those shells that we walked with were blessed by this community a few weeks ago. And so on behalf of all of our St. Stephen's pilgrims, thank you for your prayers. We walked the last portion of the Via Francis of the Camino de Santiago. And this year there'll be an estimated over 500,000 people that arrive in Santiago, all walking for different reasons. But I find this significant, walking in the same direction with hope that God is a part of their journey. On our trip, the way things kind of naturally happened, we would typically leave around 9 a.m., but one morning we left a little earlier, and we found ourselves in the crowd of hundreds moving in the same direction. It was almost overwhelming to be caught in a sea of people. And on the day that we arrived in Santiago, there were nearly 1,500 others, many having traveled a much more arduous journey of many more miles than we did. And it hit me just how hopeful in a broken world people will walk hundreds of miles for self-discovery, walking from different places with the hope that they'll arrive with a shared unity of this journey. Our crew was especially lively. There was much joy in sharing and breaking bread and even playing mahjong. I think someone brought a travel mahjong kit. I think it's the first time in 1,100 years that mahjong has been played on the Camino de Santiago. There was also a rather traumatic encounter with some Spanish agricultural machinery that left a few of us dry heaving on the side of the road, and I will spare you the rest of the details. I'm honestly not sure I've laughed that much in many years. I did have a 3-hour moment to walk and to pray and to reflect on my own Christian identity and what it means to be a follower of Jesus Christ. And maybe more specifically, what my own meditations were stirring up was how my faith has changed over 15 years since I began seminary. I'm not explicitly sure that I have ever prayed for God to increase my faith, like the apostles in our gospel reading have cried out for. But I have found my faith has grown. And as it has grown, it has helped me to rest in God's love through the many and varied changes of life. A gift that I give tremendous thanks for. And maybe that is the kind of faith that we can hope for each of us, to have our faith increased so that we too may rest in the knowledge and love of God in all that we undertake. As I looked back, it struck me that fresh out of seminary, I was a solo clergy in a congregation where I preached 48 Sundays and all the other major feasts each year. And being in a small congregation, I had time to pore over the gospel text each week. I would bring out language tools. I would read several commentaries. And that's a worthy study that few pastors have time to dedicate to accomplish. But I very much felt like there was some kind of secret to unlock each week. Some hidden message that I was called to deliver to my congregation. And as the week would unfold, I'd work harder and harder to uncover that message. my philosophy has changed. Lately, it has become increasingly clear that much of the gospel, the wisdom of the gospel, and what makes it so unbelievably profound and life-changing is how extraordinarily simple it is, and yet exceptionally costly and difficult. It is the pearl that is worth the merchant selling everything. The weight of the gospel. Here is what I'm suggesting. I think deep down, we all know what we are supposed to do, how we are supposed to live in that sacrificial way that Jesus calls us to live. And yet sin or ego or fear or suspicion or that little voice, if you've read the Screw Tape Letters by C.S. Lewis, that little voice that dances on our shoulder and whispers lies into our ears, keeps us from doing it. It is the simplicity of it that I find so incredibly life-giving and also struggle to live into. I mean, think of the weight of our gospel. And Jesus sums up the entire gospel. He says, it is simply to love God with all your heart and mind and strength and soul, and equally to love our neighbors as ourselves. The gospel is that simple, and yet we all know that it is profoundly difficult to see the image of God in each other, especially when it feels like that is not an ethic that has been adopted by others. But we know this is not quid pro quo. It is the ethic that is demanded of us as baptized Christians. It's the thing, we don't need to unlock the key of that message. We just need to trust that it is the right thing to do. Oh God, increase our faith. Or as we heard in a gospel lesson a few weeks ago, to love our enemies and to pray for those who hate you. It is so simple and yet so profoundly difficult. We don't need any secret message out of that. We just need to trust that it's the right thing to do. Increase our faith. Or the profound passage from the 2nd chapter of Philippians, that we are to be like Christ by emptying of ourselves, humility, compassion, and service, not bullying people into submission. We don't need to unlock that message. We just need to trust that it's the right thing to do. Increase our faith. Or we also heard a few weeks ago the parable of the Good Samaritan, where the Samaritan, who is seen as the enemy, crosses boundaries to care for someone. Difficult when we distrust each other. We don't need a secret message out of that. We just need to trust that it's the right thing to do. Increase our faith. Or to believe in God's abundance and that we can give sacrificially of our time and talent and treasure and still have enough. Increase our faith. These are simple and timeless and absolutely radical ways of living. The gospel message hasn't changed. There isn't some new secret to how to live that's waiting to be unlocked by some savvy preacher or TikTok influencer. There is a crisis of faith that has us not willing to want to engage unless everyone else is playing along. And I think we all know that's not how it works. God, increase our faith. I'm struck by those words in our gospel that if you had the faith of a mustard seed, do we have the faith to believe that the way of Jesus Christ is enough? Do we have faith that compassion and mercy and love and forgiveness and prayer and the unfettered commitment to see the image of God in each other is the full embodiment of our faith and how we are called to live our lives? And if you're struggling, so were the disciples. Increase our faith. We're also a church of like certain structures and program years, and we kick off Stewardship Sunday this week, so I have to at least hold this up and maybe invite you to see this as an act of faithfulness. Increase our faith. Increase our faith to trust that love is the most powerful force in the world. Increase our faith to forgive when it would be easier to hold on. Increase our faith to give generously of our time and our talent and our treasure. Increase our faith to follow you on this journey. And my hope is that all of our faith will be our source of hope and renewal in life. A pearl worth giving everything for. Amen.